Hello. All right. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, April 21st, 2021 Town Council regular meeting at 6 p.m. We'll start with a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call of members. All members are present today. So I don't have anybody absent. Additions to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? No? Don't you want to make an addition to the agenda?
Want to add a point of personal privilege under the business.
Okay, all right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes for January 18th, 2021 special meeting, February 3rd, 2021 work session, and February 17th, 2021 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? There was one typographical error. That was all.
I had heard you, so that's fine.
Yep. Okay. Is this one we can do all in favor of? All in favor. We're gonna try to not do so many roll call votes. If they're all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, ayes have it.
Tom's having a good night.
Yeah, you're getting there, one step at a time. All right, council member announcements. Let's start on this end. Dr. Sullivan?
I just wanted to thank all of the citizens and visitors that turned out for our Earth Day trash pickup. It was a huge success. I think we had close to, if not over 100 volunteers. We covered everything from the bluffs to the point, from the beach to the Monroe Point townhouses, and gave it all a good pickup. So thank you very much to everybody that helped with that.
Ms. Allison?
Nothing to add other than we got new basketball nets at the Torrey Smith Park.
Thank you. Mr. Gator?
Okay, two quick ones. One, we've identified the agency for completing the comprehensive plan. The cost is within the planning and zoning budget, and that's been confirmed with both Ms. Oakes and Ms. Easley. And we'll begin work this week to go through the procurement process for that to make it happen. It's from the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis, so the group that's going to do it out of VCU. Second announcement, much like with Karen, we're talking about the volunteers. Update on the vaccinations. The Guadalupe Clinic has now distributed over 2,200 vaccines, primarily to the people of Colonial Beach. 1,000 of those people have received a second vaccine. So they're doing a great amount of work. And last Saturday, we had the sailors and airmen from Dahlgren as well helping us out. So another thanks to them. For those who may not have heard the news, as of Monday, Virginia has opened up registration for the vaccine to those 16 and older. Now, of note, 16-year-olds can only receive the Pfizer vaccine. We have the Moderna vaccine, so the age is 18 years and over for the Moderna vaccine at the Guadalupe Clinic. And that's all.
Thanks. Looking forward to that comp plan. All right, Mr. Decker.
Glasses got tied in with a mask.
First of all, I'd like to applaud Karen and everybody who participated in Earth Day, the pickup. And I have a little personal story to tell about that. About 2 hours into it, I was getting a little disheartened, picking up all the trash, particularly in one area where it seemed concentrated. And this little boy, who was 6 or 7, came up to me and asked what I was doing. And I told him. So he started helping me, and his brother started helping me. And that just warmed my heart. It gave me a real good feeling for the town. That we have kids coming along who take pride in our town. Good to see everybody. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Market?
Several matters pending, but nothing to report at this point.
Ms. Reynolds?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
I would like to take a moment to introduce our new Director of Parks and Rec, Mr. Bobby Duke. You want to stand up? It's okay, yeah. He's in the annex of 700 Colonial Avenue at the moment, but we're working on that too. So he's already had a lot of successful meetings and working with different partnerships in the Northern Neck regional things from the Y to Northern Neck Tourism to the Naked Neck Adventures mobile app, all kinds of really interesting things going on, and some grants to look into and pursue as well. So just go getting it. Yes, and thank you to Mr. Allison too, who's really helped onboard him and work with him as well. I'd also like to thank everybody for coming out on Earth Day. Many of you know I was out there on 205 picking up because that particular section in front of Food Lion on both sides has caught my attention every day that I drive by it, and I just can't stand it. As you know, I have a personal disdain for litter, and I really, really don't like it. So, and I'm willing to get out there and do whatever I have to do in order to help the problem as well. So I appreciate all of the assistance from Naval Surface Facility, from Dahlgren and Indian Head. We had Space Force out there helping us pick up trash. We had
Marines, we have sailors.
Yep, Marine sailors, locals, kids, adults, council members, and staff. And I was just really happy to see all the participation in that. And we're due Save the Bay Day the first Saturday in June. And I drove down 205 today, and I will be back again at 205 to clean up trash again, I think. But it is getting better, and I think you can tell at Torrey Smith Park, where was particularly concerning to me that has really made major strides and changes, and we've been meeting with the kids. I've personally gone down to the park several times just to talk to them, just to say, hey, this is important. You know, our police chief has been down there with me, and our detective, and just to meet and talk about it and just say, you know, the impact and the pride that we want to have in this community. And so I'm seeing a big change there, so that's great.
Robin, I think I forgot to say that Colonial Beach Green Space organized pickup with great assistance from the Alliance, the Foundation, and BAM. I
Yes.
just wanted to shout that out.
Thank you for giving kudos to everybody. Yes. And we've been working on onboarding our new town manager, India Adams Jacobs. And so she starts on Monday. So that's been very exciting. And we want to really thank Rob. I think we'll have a formal thank you at the next meeting, but it's just really, and all department staff too that has stepped up during this time. But it's been exciting to take this next step with it. And we have all been in budget meetings. I think every one of us now. So, and we have continued budget meetings this week. So we are in budget season. That's all I have to update at this time. All right, so first up for our presentations tonight is our audit. Mr. Hawkins. Hi. Nice to see you again.
Can I?
Yeah. It's much clearer if you can see without it.
All right, hope everyone can hear me. Thanks for having me tonight. Obviously, I'd much rather be talking to you in December than April. But we finally gotten it done. The audit's done, and got a final report to go over with you tonight. So what I did pass around in kind of a bound form was a draft report. And the reason it has draft on it is we had one last piece before we could finalize the report, which was just making sure that we didn't feel like there was any contingent liabilities from consulting with the town's attorney. And so we got that letter back this afternoon, and was able to review that and make sure that I didn't feel like there was anything within that letter that we felt needed to be disclosed in the report. So really the only difference between this draft bound copy and what I think Lisa had passed out to you earlier was we were able to add my signature to the report, and I had someone from my office email the final PDF to her. So you guys have the final in a not as pretty format as you have this draft, but like I said, it's the same document other than the final has my signatures on it. So just to kind of first, I'm going to tell you just about the audit process in general, how we got here, and I've flagged some pages in the report to go over. And then I think as usual, there's probably a few questions that you all may have for me. So the audit process kind of got started a little later than normal this year. Well, even in the preliminary, when we do our interim testing, that was not normal as well, because that's when we kind of had the rise of the pandemic, and we had to do quite a bit of our testing remotely. We may have even done all our preliminary work remotely. Maybe we came for like a day to kind of minimize having to be on site at that time. So, but final field work, we just weren't able to really start things until probably January or so. Just I think the town was experiencing some turnover in some key areas, as well as just some unexpected difficulties, some things that the staff had to go through in terms of being able to prepare for the audit. But we were able to get in there, I think, in either January or February, and get through all the work that we needed to do, and then now have a final report for you this evening. And so I'm going to go into the report itself, and page 1 is where we have our opinion on the financial statements. And this is an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statements that follow it are free of any material misstatement based on the testing that we've done. I'm going to jump ahead to page 6, just because the first 2 exhibits in the report are what's called your entity-wide statements. And those kind of take into account all elements of the town and school board. It puts on your fixed assets and your debt, and it can be a little harder to follow than just your fund statements. And so exhibit 3 is where you see the beginning of your fund statements. And this is your balance sheet, and you'll see you have your general governmental funds there, which is your general fund, your capital projects, and then you all have the erosion fund. The biggest, of course, is your general fund, and you've got an unassigned fund balance of about just shy of $2.5 million. Most of it is unassigned, which means it's free to be used at the town's discretion. And on page 8 is exhibit 5, which shows how we got to this ending fund balance for the end of the year. It takes your revenues and expenditures, transfers in, transfers out, and you've got a beginning fund balance and then your ending. And so you began the year with about, in your general fund, with about 2.4 million and got close to 2.5 at the end of the year. One thing that's usually a question for me when I go present to any town or city or county is what should our fund balance be, and specifically what should our unassigned fund balance be. And I don't always have an exact answer for what that should be. I mean, each locality should really have its own fund balance policy for a minimum of what it should be. But for me, it's just an advice standpoint, I always recommend that you should be at least 15 to 20% of your expenditures for the year to feel safe. It's just kind of just a rule of thumb that I give. But of course, localities have their own policies and their own determinations for what they want it to be. But I kind of just wanted to share that with you, and that your fund balance, I think, sits at about 35% of your total expenditures in your general fund. So 34% is in excess of kind of that goal bare minimum that I tell people to keep their unassigned fund balance at. I'm going to jump ahead to page 11, which is Exhibit 8. And that shows your water and sewer funds and kind of the revenues, the expenses. For your water and sewer funds, we call those have to go by net position rather than fund balance, because those are reported on an accrual basis, so they're treated somewhat differently. So it's called net position instead of fund balance. But for those funds, you went from a combined $12.2 million up to about just shy of 12.7. So those balances increased in those funds as well. Following your financial statements, you have many pages of note disclosure. In my opinion, probably more than you need, considering probably 3/4 of it is on your pension, your VRS, and your other post-employment benefits liabilities. Otherwise, there's a lot of information within the notes that kind of support the numbers from these pages that we just went over. I'm going to jump to page 77, which is where you see another report from us, Robinson Farmer Cox. And this is our report on the internal control testing that we have to do for the audit, as well as other compliance testing that we do. And we do have two findings to report for this year. These two were present last year as well, and we'll kind of go over those in a moment as the findings themselves present themselves at the end of the report. But on this page 77, you can kind of see in the last paragraph, we reference two items that we think are findings or material weaknesses. On page 79 is where we issue our opinion on federal compliance, being that the town receives in excess of $750,000 of federal expenditures. A single audit is required, and we have to test 40% of that at a minimum. And so we did that, and based on our testing there, we didn't have any findings to report from a federal compliance standpoint. I think the major programs that we tested were the child nutrition cluster, which is your school and food, your school, food, and breakfast over at the school board. And we also did some testing on the town side, which I think was related to some revolving loan funds that are federal as well. I'm going to jump ahead to page 84, which is where we have those two findings that are material weaknesses for the financial statements. The first one is one that I think the town has probably always had in terms of segregation of duties. I do think there has been hiring done within the town staff to maybe start heading in the right direction to maybe be able to avoid that in the future. During FY20, there was still limited staff to be able to accommodate a full desirable segregation of duties, even for a town your size. And then the second one is one that you had last year as well, which is on auditor adjustments that are necessary to get from the trial balance that we initially received to what are correct numbers for the audit at the end. And so I can't remember how many journal entries we have to do to get to that point, but there's enough there that it still presents a material weakness, especially in the utility funds. I think there's something within the accounting software that there was one fund, I can't remember if it's water or sewer, but it's out of balance basically, where the debits don't equal the credits. And so work had to be done there to make sure that we could get an accurate trial balance to go into the report. And I'm hopeful that error within the accounting system will be corrected for FY21. So that was it for the report. I also have two attachments that Lisa passed out. The first of which is a letter that has our letterhead on it. This is the separate management letter that we issued. Just wanted to point out an item that we came across during our expenditure testing where an incorrect vendor was paid during the year in the amount of $35,000. Fortunately, this vendor was owed an amount in excess of $35,000. So once it was discovered, the town and the vendor that was paid just reduced the town's balance by that amount, and they paid it. And then they paid the other vendor that never received their $35,000, but still a big enough of a error that, hey, this is not a good thing in terms of evaluating your controls to make sure that the correct vendor is being paid. And just wanted to alert you to that situation, and hope that the town could put more focus on their disbursement control process. And part of that could be that, a lot of the overhead, or excuse me, a lot of the turnover that occurred during the year within the town finance department and management department could have played a factor in that. And then the other attachment I have is, it was made aware that I think there was a bit of a request to kind of provide some debt ratios for the town. So I put together this table that I think may help with that. At least I hope so. This is a table that we do for other towns, cities, counties to kind of give you a debt ratio as compared to the assessed values for your property taxes. And then I've also provided some similar ratios for other towns that we audit as kind of a reference. So the net bonded debt to asset value percentage there was about 2.07%. That's basically taking just your general government debt, not including when it says enterprise, it's taken away your water and sewer. Basically, this is, because you would think that based on how it's structured, that the water and sewer are self-sufficient. They can, pay for the debt that they have there. But the general debt is basically going to be paid from local revenues, so to speak. And so that's why it takes into account your assessed values that you have for your property taxes, and then the debt and how it compares as a percentage. And so you guys are a little higher than some other towns that I've included there. Your percentage was at 2.07. The others were, up to 1.75. But anyway, maybe that would be helpful. If not, I can certainly provide some other information if there was someone on the council or someone within management that wanted some additional information on, debt ratios and how the town stands in that regard. Just want to thank the town staff and school board staff for helping us get through this. I know it was later than we intended, but I think the hope is that things will be more normal and more timely for FY21. So I'd like to answer any questions that you guys have for me, and I'll leave it at that.
Are there any questions from anybody? Yep.
Probably somebody on our staff or Dr. Turner, maybe with the school board, to clarify this, but on page 14.
Pull it closer to you, Pam.
Pull it closer to you.
On page 14 of your report, under individual component unit disclosures, the final sentence is the school board does not issue separate financial reports. And then in some of your recommendations, you say that the town and the school board should improve their financials, but do you see anything from the school board, or is it just a line item in the town showing a transfer?
So, well, first, I'm going to provide kind of a two-part response. That sentence there basically means that there are some school boards, they get literally a separate one of these that are done just based on their financials. So I have a few clients that their school board just gets a separate financial report that's issued. So that's kind of what that means for that line. And so we do not do a separate financial report for the schools. Second part to this is when we audit the school board records, they're now on the same accounting system as the town. They're Edmonds. And I was so hopeful that you guys would both be on the same system together and communicate with each other. And but that's not the case. And I'm led to believe that something on the Edmonds end where they say that they're not able to do that, because I think there's two different EIN numbers between the town and the school board. And so even though they're both on Edmonds, they're separate in a way. So the town still has funds that are set up for the school board because that's where the cash is, and so that's where they have to keep financials for the school board as well. So what we do is, and the school board still has their separate system, we make sure those funds reconcile, at least in total, revenues and expenditures. And so that's part of our audit procedures, but our beginning place is what funds are on the town side, just because, like I said, that's where the balance sheet items are, that's where the cash is. And so that's where we base our audit off of. And like I said, we also make sure that in total we reconcile between the school board and the town. I do so wish that you guys were together on a central system. It would eliminate that process of having to reconcile between the two systems. But unfortunately, it doesn't sound like that's capable, or it could be worth reaching back out to the, I don't know if it's an Edmonds thing, or they think it's you're not supposed to do that thing. I certainly have several clients, that are on the same system together, so I don't think it's
Maybe we can get you to call Edmonds.
I will.
Because we did
I don't know how
try
much
to do
good.
that, that was the goal.
Yeah.
It would have saved us a lot of money to do that.
Um,
And so,
I'd like to add something there. Okay, so as of fiscal '21, we're only reconciling the balance sheet part anymore. We don't record any of their expenditures or the revenue. Only thing that we're reconciling is now the cash, the balance
Oh,
sheet
wow.
accounts. All their stuff is kept separate now. I don't have access to their expenditures. Only what gets brought over to us now is just what affects that cash line, those cash lines.
Okay. It's all hidden there. I'm not sure quite how to respond to that. We need to talk about it, I think, just to make sure you guys are on the right track with that.
and get Edmonds on the phone too. They're the
Sure.
ones that are said that,
I don't know, I
To
mean,
do it
you
this
would
way.
probably have to give them permission to
Yeah.
speak with me, but I certainly don't mind taking time out of my day to speak with them, but,
I did want to point out that it looks like there were 4 findings that were in 2019 that we have,
Yeah.
were corrected. And so we used to have 6,
yeah.
and now we have 2.
Yeah, so I do apologize for not
And
bringing
that
that up.
the 2 findings that we do have, one of them is that, is the point of how many people can we staff and have those checks and balances with, and there's just a natural limitation to that in our office. But we are better staffed than we were last year, and we did, hopefully, all of them will stay healthy and alive, because we did have a death in our treasury department. And of course, the change in CFO as well, which was pretty drastic. So, I think we're looking at a much better year this year. Lisa's told me we're gonna be on time this year. Yes, yeah.
We'll see you in December.
All right, we'll see you in December. And so if we can go from 4 to 2, maybe we can go from 2 to none, or at least 2 to 1 to the, So that's good, that's a good sign. And I appreciate the debt ratio sheet that you gave us. Unfortunately, the places in which you compare us to, have you ever been there? Because they're very different
I
than
didn't want to
here.
I wanted to do towns.
I mean,
and
Vienna,
so,
like
yeah.
West Point,
It's
Cape Charles. Have you been to Cape Charles? Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be like Cape Charles a little
Yeah.
bit. That'd be
so
nice. I understand.
Yeah, I could probably come up with maybe some,
More like time.
So is that
Yeah.
number to the right by these towns, the net bonded debt per capita? Would
yes, yes.
So Vienna doesn't look so great when you look at it that way, right?
I mean, it's
It doesn't look so much better than us if you look at the per capita.
right.
Oh, yeah, sure. Because they have less population too inside their little towns.
Yeah,
That's
that's what drives it, is the population.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
More debt per capita.
They do
Yeah.
have more per capita than we do. Yeah. Well, they have revenues from industrial places inside of their towns too, and some of those do. And we don't, we're reliant mostly on real estate taxes, so.
But you're correct, the population number is what's driving that.
It is,
Yeah, because they have that, I'm sure that they must have a smaller population.
Anyway, I just wanted to point that out before. we
Yeah, I can see what I can do to give you some better comps.
Misunderstood about that. I didn't have any other questions at this point. Obviously, we were waiting for that final attorney correspondence, and so. Yes, they have it now. So,
Yes.
I won't go through it with fine tooth comb and contact you if I have any questions. And I'm pretty thorough, so.
Sure, and also I'll always make myself available if there's any questions after I leave tonight. Please feel free to reach out if anyone has any questions. I don't mind taking time out of my day to meet with you.
We're
on
gonna
the
see you
phone or
soon,
something.
because December's not that far. It's 6 months, you'll be back.
Sure.
Maybe
August.
No, I mean, it's really about the time where we start planning our interim preliminary work again, so.
Perfect. Yes. And I saw you at Westmoreland County one too. So I know you do the county.
Yes, our Fredericksburg office does the county. not our.
Not your, but the same
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah, same firm.
Okay, all right, any other questions? Nope. Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to serve the town. Take care.
All right, we'll see you soon. Thank you, Eric. Mr. Trimmer? Supervisor? Yeah.
Madam Mayor, council members. First of all, congratulations on that positive audit. I can recall, and some of you can, when it always wasn't that way. But through the last several years, it's been very positive, and that's a really good thing. Few things tonight. I want to follow up on your trash pickup. I did talk to the county about that, following up in your conversation a couple months ago. I know it's been a while, but the court hasn't appointed anybody or signed anybody to do that yet, but they're really hoping that's going to get back on the schedule possibly as early as next week. And that's to pick the trash up out there between the Beach Gate and Hall Store out in that area. So hopefully that'll happen, and that's what I'm hearing anyway, but we'll stay on top of that just in case. The Westmoreland County Spring 2021 Household Hazardous Waste Collection is this Saturday. It's between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. at A.T. Johnson. Folks can bring up to 100 pounds at free of charge. Anything above that is going to be, I think it's like $1.05 a pound. So you might want to wait before you bring it. They're asking that you pack it in your vehicle so they can remove it from your vehicle so you don't have to get out. And they say if your window's going to be open, they want you to be masked and they want to follow those protocols. And for those that may not be aware, Carol Gong retired. She was the Commissioner of Revenue for many, many years. I want to say it was more than 50. It was a long time.
It's a long time.
And she retired February the 28th, and the Board of Supervisors appointed her deputy to act until a special election can be held at the November 2021 election cycle. So that position will be open for election, just to let you know about that. And William Hoover will fill that position until that election. So Maurice Parker, who's with the Commonwealth Transportation Board, they're going to be holding meetings for the public to get involved in that involves their fiscal year 2022 to 27 6-year plan, where they'll take comments from the public. I'll provide you some information in case anybody's interested in being on that call. You can also email questions or information. You may already have it, but I'll ensure that you have it. The one for this area is April the 27th, which is a Tuesday. It's at 6 p.m., but I'll ensure that you get the information that you need in case you want to participate in that. I want to say kudos to Pat Fitzgerald tonight. She served on the Rappahannock Emergency Medical Services Council since 1998. And she's attended 83% of their meetings. Her term comes up for renewal in June, and she's asked to continue, and the Board of Supervisors has appointed her to continue for another 3 years in that position. And we all know what an asset that Pat has been to the town and continues to be to the squad. So we're looking forward to her serving for another 3 years. And I mean, highly commended by that board in her participation there. We've talked a couple times about the YMCA in Montrose, and we provided the names of those that are on the rec committee. And now that you have a new director of Parks and Rec, hopefully we can add that person and maybe one of those 3 or 4 that was names who were provided. I don't know if any of them have been contacted yet, but because the YMCA is doing all of that. But it's just for input in the services that they provide. So if Mr. Duke wishes, I'll make sure that I submit his name and phone number as well. so that he can participate in that. And he's probably the one that really needs to be participating in that mostly. So I'm not sure that any of those volunteers have been contacted yet, and even though that they've been recommended, even though we've mentioned it a couple times at the meetings. The county entered into a mutual aid agreement with the Naval District Washington. It involves emergency services. We've provided emergency services, our fire department, our EMS for years to the Naval Base at Dalvern. They've also in turn did the same thing for us. The county's had an MOU with King George for years. We renewed that a few months ago. So this is actually going to officially put it in writing as an MOU for our fire departments in the county and the town and our squads to respond over there when they have emergency situations. So now it'll be in writing where it hasn't been in the past. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was that the county did a proclamation, and it has to do with voter safety. That comes up in the month of May, May 22nd through May 28th. Over 600 people die a year in voting-related accidents. And I think something like 86% of those are caused by not wearing a life jacket. So we've done a proclamation for that, recognizing that, and hopefully making citizens aware so they'll be a little bit more careful. Most all of us in the community are voters, and we know how quick something can happen, when we least expect it. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it ends up in serious injury or death. So any questions for me about anything?
Anybody? I think we also have the voter safety proclamation we're gonna do.
Oh, okay.
Next month. I don't know, I didn't know that. Yeah, yes, but
Okay.
that is a very important part, and it's good to bring awareness about it now, and 2 weeks from now, and throughout the year, because we both know how critical and how quickly things can happen out there on the water.
Robin?
Yeah.
Tim, we do just a brief overview after each of our meetings and publish it on our website. And so much of what you're saying here is really important to our citizens. Would it be possible to get your notes in writing?
Absolutely. Yep, and I can email them to you or scan it and make a copy or whatever. I'll make sure that you get it though.
Just email it to us as soon as you can so we can
I will.
include it in our brief.
Yeah, that would be
That's
great.
great, yeah, because you're right, a lot of people don't tend to serve or hear this other than who's here. And it is very important, and I know they'd like to know about it. Our budget meeting is tomorrow night too, the public hearing. And then the county will vote, I think 7 days or before May 1st on the budget for this next year. So, but the public hearing is tomorrow night. I want to say it's at 6 o'clock, I hope, but
I saw it advertised in the paper.
yeah, so, anything else? Good seeing you, thank you.
Very much. Mr. Turner?
Good afternoon. Tonight we would like to present to the council the Colonial Beach School Board presentation for our budget. And waiting for the presentation to come up. So again, I would like to thank you all for meeting with us over the last 2 to 3 weeks individually to discuss the Colonial Beach School Board budget. I found those meetings to be beneficial and important to our discussion about funding for the school district. So we have a 5-person school board. They are a pleasure to work with, great advocates for the school district. You'll see Mrs. Michelle Payne as chairman, Mrs. Sieber as vice chair. Mrs. McClure, a board member, Mrs. Lyburn, and Mrs. Lucas. We do have tonight with us Chair and Vice Chair in support of this discussion. So first, I just wanted to give some brief updates about the school district, some information and highlights that have occurred during the pandemic. First, I would like to start off with some program updates. We have updated several programs within our district to support the services for our students that include Second Step, Teach Town, and Talent Ed. One of the things we're really excited about would be Talent Ed, which is a program that allows the school districts to take on online applications, and it's made teacher recruitment much easier for us in the school district. The next would be food service. You know, food service continues to provide meals throughout the pandemic. Since last March, we've provided over 147,000 meals throughout the school community to our students. So I think that's something that we should be extremely proud of. And then also too, with our CLC grant, we've had the ability to continue to provide that enrichment program to all of our students virtually. So that has been a great plus for us at the school district and our students. So another important aspect that we've had to adjust to during the pandemic and make a quick transition was professional development. So over the course of the last year, our teachers have been engaged in a professional development program that has improved our ability to provide virtual instruction to our students through key conversations with our program managers, which provided asynchronous learning opportunities. Equity and access was a topic of conversation for our teachers in their delivery of instruction, working on meaningful tasks, and increasing our family partnerships. Within technology during the pandemic, we had to transition to a one-on-one instructional delivery. And so we were able to provide all of our students with iPads, mobile hotspots, and we also had to take a look at our learning management system, Canvas, to ensure that we were able to provide students with the appropriate platform to learn from during the pandemic. As you know, we're always extremely proud of all of our students. And we have students who are attending Old Dominion University, Hollins University this year, they've been accepted, University of Lynchburg, Rappahannock Community College, and VCU. So we are extremely proud of our students who've been able to transition off to college. And we also have students on the next slide who will enter the workforce, some locally, working in welding, business, local employment, the military, culinary arts, and cosmetology. We also have a student this year who I believe is a sophomore or junior that will be serving on the Student Advisory Board to review the history and social science standards of learning, which we're extremely proud of as well. So for the budget tonight, we have several priorities that we've discussed with you all before. We are looking at potentially a 10% health increase, but that is a budgetary number that we use to help us predict what the possible cost may be. We have, fortunately, over the last 3 years been rather low with our health increase, somewhere between 2 and 5%. But we want to be conservative and cautious as we make that projection within our budget. We have included within our budget a substitute daily rate increase. And we've also budgeted for a salary increase for all of our staff. We've had to take a look at minimum wage increases that go into effect in May of this year. And that increase will be at $9.50. And then in January of next year, it'll go to $11, which is a very small impact to our budget, but yet still I want to make sure that I communicate that. We also have budgeted to provide our teachers with a salary step increase for this current school year, and for teachers that worked with us during our previous school year who stayed and remained and were committed to Colonial Beach Public Schools. Due to the budget cuts in the previous year, we were not able to provide them with a salary increase. So we would like to provide them with 2 steps. So we have taken a look at that within this budget. We have program needs that we are attempting to address within our budget, but then also too have SOQ needs. And the SOQ needs is a school counselor. Recently, the governor, the DOE, changed the SOQ requirement from 375 to 325 to 1. And so that necessitates a school counselor that could potentially serve our elementary and middle school age children. Next slide, please. The next slide is talking about the local composite index. That is something that I've spoken with you as individuals about. Right this year, the local composite index is 0.3317, which means that the school district or the locality should provide about 33% of the local funding for the school district. And if I'm talking too fast, please raise your hand or say something. I can't talk fast. So this slide, slide 9, is discussing enrollment. As of January the 31st of this year, we predicted that our enrollment would be 604 for this year. But over the last 2 years, we have seen a slight decline in our student enrollment. So as we built this particular budget, it was built with an ADM number of 595, okay? I know that we see a number of 609 as a projected enrollment for 21-22, but that does not take into effect the rate in which students enter our district and leave our district during the times in which the State Department takes an ADM snapshot, which occurs September 30th and March the 30th of every school year. This slide is a comparison of revenue by funding source for the last 2 years. We anticipate receiving slightly more this year in state funds, food service revenues, and in federal grants. We anticipate our transfer funds and other local dollars to remain consistent. And as you can see, we've updated our local request to $2,284,633, which is slightly less than what was presented to you in your individual meetings. This slide demonstrates the total picture of expenditures by category and the revenue source that supports the division. It also demonstrates the local funding amount needed to support priorities of the school district and the school division's budget. As you can see, state funds typically account for, in this budget, about 59%, federal funds at 8%, food service at 5%, the local at 27%, and I'm sure that local amount would go up if we pulled out food service because it is a self-sustaining entity within the district. The other two pots are a little bit higher than 1%. So that is the makeup of the school district budget. We are expecting about a little over $5 million from state revenue, which is again about $140,000 more than the original discussion we had. Here, this slide, which is slide 12, demonstrates the actuals of the school year 19-20 to the 2021 projected using numbers as of February the 21st and the proposed budget for the 21-22 school year. As you can see, there's an increase in elementary instruction and secondary instruction. And we can speak to the increase. I'm sorry that it's kind of shifted. I'm not sure why there's a line going through the numbers. But we can speak to the increases in elementary and in the secondary line. The elementary line speaks to, there's an increase there because of the textbook adoption that we're anticipating for science, adding a guidance counselor to the budget, teacher salary increases that we've discussed, a $10,000 adjustment, returning the supply line of the budget back, and $20,000 for summer school. The secondary increase is that we've been extremely fortunate, although we've had some teachers leave us at the high school, but we've been extremely fortunate to recruit teachers that are tenured and come to us with master's degrees. So we have more tenured staff at the secondary school, which has increased our salaries, and the impacts of VRS to the tune of about $180,000. We've added the SOL Academy back to the budget, which was cut last year due to budget cuts. We've returned to both offices of the principal, meaning the elementary principal and the high school principal, supplies, travel, and a conference for professional dues have been returned back to that budget. And this year, we've been extremely fortunate, if you can call it fortunate, that a lot of the conferences were virtual, and we did not experience travel costs for the principals and myself. But I do believe that if we are to return to normal, there will be an increase in travel for myself, the principals, and other staff that attend professional development. We've also had an increase in salaries due to more tenure staff in our secondary line. Also, too, you'll see there's a slight increase there at the elementary and the secondary lines due to us adding the campus AP, which I will speak to toward the end of the presentation. We have a decrease in transportation, a slight decrease in transportation in our budget for this year, but you'll see in 1920, we spent roughly $490,000 in transportation. And that was because we purchased a bus and we paid off a lease.
You mean in 2019?
I'm sorry, yeah, in 2019,
2020, I don't know what was about.
Yeah, 1920, we took care of that, but that's the reason for the anomaly there. If you look at facilities and maintenance, again, you'll see that we have a slight increase there, and that's because of liability insurance that was under budgeted, and we received notification from our liability insurance agency that we need to make sure we made that adjustment. Technology has remained consistent. Again, you'll see.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine, man. You're fine.
When you looked up, I thought you were ready.
No, I just want to make sure I know my man. So for the federal grant, you also see within our projected amount this year, you see an anomaly of about $847,000. And as I've shared with you, we were the fiscal agent for a restraint and seclusion grant, which simply means we are responsible for reimbursing all the schools within our region for training that they participate with regards to restraint and seclusion. So as our chairman says, it's money in, money out. That does not necessarily benefit us as a whole, but we are a part of that regional cohort, and our staff members are participating in that training. And then you see food service with a increase this year for the budgeted number, but it had been consistent for the 1920 and the 2021 projection. And the reason for the increase there is because of lost revenue. Typically during the school year, we have an increased amount of revenue due to sales within the cafeteria. And in the pandemic and within the projected year where we are, we have not had the opportunity to provide students with the a la carte items, milk, ice cream, whatever it may be. And so returning to a place of normalcy next year is what we want. So we project that we'll have that revenue source coming back in for us next year. Next slide, please. Slide 13 demonstrates items that have been prioritized within this budget. You'll see the school counselor that we've discussed about. You'll see the reading specialist, the part-time social worker, and you see an asterisk beside the campus assistant principal. And the reason why there's an asterisk there is because initially in our budget discussions with the school board, we had the campus assistant principal there. And because of the funding that was needed for the position, the revenue at the time that we had received from the governor based on his December calculation sheet, did not allow us to push for that position within our budget. When you look at the March 9th calculation sheet and the governor's veto session, that did not impact education. It gave us additional funding that allows us to come to you seeking a campus assistant principal. I must say that it's not an SOQ mandate, okay? So there's no SOQ that says that we have to have this campus assistant principal, but it is a need for the campus as you look at the roles and responsibilities of our administrators and a way for us to help them manage and support the instructional programming within each school. So that is the reason why it's been brought back to the budget discussion. But I must say that it's not an SOQ mandate, okay? The school counselor is an SOQ mandate, SOQ meaning standards of quality, one in which we must have by law and legislation the campus assistant principal. It's not, but it is a need of the district, and it is one that has been advocated for before. That is a position that has been asked to be returned, well, not returned, placed within the budget. Next slide, please. This slide simply demonstrates the items. I'm sorry, wrong note. This is a final comparison of projected expenditure from FY21, school year 21 and school year 22 projected expenditures. And so it just simply shows where the increases are and the total revenue or the total expenditures that we anticipate to increase by almost $700,000. Next slide, please. So the request per the governor's budget is $2,284,633. The local required effort with an ADM number of 595 is $2,136,000. $2,136,236. Okay. And as you can see, the approved funding for last school year, or for this school year, was 1.745. But historically, for the district, it had been $2,299,916. And so we are asking for less, slightly less, but it's less. And so we just want to take an opportunity to again present this publicly. I know I talked pretty fast, and I apologize for that. But if you have any questions, comments of me, Mrs. Franklin, myself, we do have a chair and a vice chair here to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Can you give us any, just an example of why this assistant principal is so important to the school?
One of the first things that I don't know if I would like to use this example, but it's the best case situation where you have two principals for both buildings. I mean, a principal for both buildings. And throughout the day, they are frequently called away from job tasks to address whether it be a student matter, a parent matter, whether it be organizing an event for after school, trying to rearrange coverage for an activity or athletic event after school, when we as a school district really need them to spend about 60% of their day on instruction, okay? And it's very difficult for research says that you as a principal should spend 60% of your time focused on classroom instruction. And it's extremely difficult for our principals to do that. So that is one reason why bringing in a campus assistant principal will allow our current administration to set aside full days to be in classrooms, monitoring instruction, looking at student achievement data, looking at professional development that's needed across their school, and be engaged without interruption. And so this would be the reason why we would want to advocate for a campus assistant principal. And that person can split their time between both buildings and allow for that type of observation, evaluation of all of our programs to take place without interruption. It's very difficult for both of our principals to do that now. Do they do their job well? Yes. But I do believe by adding a campus assistant principal, it'll allow them to go a step above their current performance. So that would be the example that I could give to you at this moment.
Mr. Gaylor?
All right, this is more just a comment, Dr. Turner. I mean, having been involved with your school for the last year, up until about a month and a half ago.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you that I have great appreciation for, especially at the high school, Miss Williams, because I was able to do the online teaching. I was working as an online teacher for the high school, and it was very routine that Miss Williams was dialed into those Zoom classes, and I could appreciate the fact that that's what the principal has to do. They have to be in there monitoring how the curriculum is being delivered. They're evaluating and assessing the skill levels of their faculty members that are teaching. They're also getting a sense of whether the students are getting it. And so I do, here I'm an advocate for this position you're taking for this assistant person, because of the workload that a principal should have and does perform. And there, I do think that Ms. Williams has gone above and beyond in how she spreads herself as much as she can. But just from my firsthand observation of it, it is something that I think a school could use. Although you said it's not an SOQ,
It's not.
it's a more than a want. I put it in the need category.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes, sir.
I just want to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Cambry. I'm usually the only one that's really vocal about stuff when it comes to the school system. So I appreciate it.
You want to add to that or no? You good? Okay. On the last slide where you had a 3% raise, that's more than 3% from what we've given before.
Say again.
On the very last slide,
So
which
when
is
we,
not up there.
yes, ma'am, that is a number that, well, let me back. The 3% is going to all staff, and it's been,
So I'm sorry, so that's not about the total number.
no, ma'am, it's
of-
not, it's not
So-
about the total number.
Okay, so we've had this discussion before, and I'm just gonna make it public because it needs to happen. The school staff raises are a part of the school board budgeting process.
Yes,
The amount allocated towards the raise for the local government match is only $86,000 of our match, of our $2 million. There is absolutely no reason why those raises can't happen regardless. Because in order to meet the required local effort, that would include those raises. So I just want to make sure that nobody comes knocking on their door saying the reason why they didn't get their raise was because the town local required effort wasn't enough. We will have to meet that number, and that will be included in it.
so the raise is expected to happen. I think one of the confusions that has come up is because of the budget cuts from the previous year where the raises were discussed, and we were not able to provide those raises based on the funding. So I do believe that there may be some people trying to
But they
mix.
were cut by the governor,
Well,
and that is the majority of the raise match.
so there is
The
a,
governors,
there is a match by the governor.
which
okay?
is the majority of it. It's like 5 times the amount of the local
There's,
governor.
there is support there from the governor, but, and that was cut, but there, not to make a comparison between us and other localities, but there were other localities that were able to pull off, whether it be a small amount of money for a raise, some other localities pulled off raises. So I think people are associating the budget cut from last year as a complete picture as to why the cuts were made, but the governor did cut the compensation supplement during last the budget development process last year. So that was cut, yes,
Okay.
by the governor, yes.
Because I'm also gonna propose that when we fund the school, that we specifically allocate the amount of funding necessary for the raises to make sure that that does indeed happen.
Well,
You understand my concern?
well, I clearly understand the concern of the school board. And so I do believe that as the funding source, you all can determine for us how much funding we receive. But I don't want to say that there's a determination as to how those funds can be spent. I do believe from speaking with school board members that the focus will be on teacher raises. And that will be the primary step that we take if the funding is not where at the request. I do believe that we will focus on making sure that raises take place. And if I'm misspeaking in any way, the chair and the vice chair are here to say, but I do believe that is the focus of the school district.
And the balance from the 2019, also, we're gonna be working on a budget amendment for that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And we have an ADM number that was just given to us late yesterday afternoon, and it was 595. So there is a balance.
I'm talking about
Oh,
2019.
2019. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Understand.
2019,
Yes, ma'am.
in order to cover the 2020, so that it would be whole. Right?
If that's the decision of town council, I can't speak to that. I know that's between them.
Are you referring to what was left over in their budget, this audit we just finished?
Yeah.
Okay, if you remember, we have an ordinance that states that money has to come back to the town and be put into the capital improvements fund. And that money can only be spent by the council granting it to the school after the school requests it, and it has to be used for capital.
Right, but those are
improvements.
things that we're gonna work on. Also,
Yeah. I just wanted to make you aware that it's not an automatic thing.
right. And the textbooks are something that are sort of a special, unique category within the school.
But they're not capital improvements, though.
Right, but there can be carryover money applied to textbooks. Yeah, that's a unique item.
So I can say that I've had a conversation with the State Department and the Assistant Superintendent, and there is legislation that supports carryover funds for the purchase of textbooks.
Right.
Okay, that is true, but I do believe that once the funds are, to Mrs. Oak's point, placed in the capital reserve fund balance by the regulation stipulates that it has to be for a capital project. So I think you're right in the sense that the legislation does allow, because I actually looked into that and spoke with the State Department, and it does allow for carryover funds to occur if you had textbook funds that went unspent. And so that's the way it has to be discussed.
And how much of the fund is for textbooks in this year?
So at this point, we had projected, I think it was roughly $80,000 for textbooks. And so that would be an area of discussion.
Did you discuss this with Aaron?
I can.
Okay,
I
because
can
he
speak
didn't
to-
mention anything of that to us, and so that number in the proposed journal entries is going right back into the capital
Okay.
improvements.
Okay,
So
Yeah,
if there's
okay.
something that we need to adjust before we close our books out,
okay.
that would be great to have.
And I can send you the legislation too. I
That's fine.
have a copy of that from the State Department.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hold on. This on the agenda. Okay, Ms. Reimer?
Well, Heather is getting our slides up. You might want to note my mask, which is Osprey Chick. That was given to me by our very talented fabric artist, Judy McGurman. But now so that I can see you, I will take that off. Put my glasses on. Masks have a way of getting caught in earrings and hearing aids. So I'm sort of stuck. I'm unstuck. My name's Joyce Reimer for people that don't know me. And I'm the president of Downtown Colonial Beach, which is the Main Street program in Main Street affiliate in Colonial Beach. And these are programs that have had a great success record of revitalizing communities through historic preservation and preservation-based development. And tonight I'm giving you an update on a grant we received from the Department of Housing and Community Development, and in conjunction with Virginia Main Street for commercial districts revitalization. Working on this project over the last year has been a voyage of discovery. As we surveyed residents, reviewed existing planning documents, and consulted community organizations and town and government officials. Ultimately, it led to the historic rehabilitation designs, redevelopment proposals, and conclusions we're presenting today. There's going to be a lot to process in this presentation. It's not a long presentation, but there will be quite a bit to process. We hope it will lead you to the same conclusions that we reached. The objectives of this grant were to develop building and streetscape designs to guide and generate historically compatible new residential, retail, and civic development and historic restorations, and to create and distribute a data-driven marketing brochure aimed at attracting additional investors and filling empty storefronts with a complementary retail mix. The designs are aimed to reinforce and build upon the community's historical small town character while meeting important community needs. The second part of the grant, the data-driven marketing brochure, has been a challenge because much of the available data dates back to 2017, and a lot has changed since then. But in search of data, we stumbled across the University of Mary Washington Center for Economic Development and Small Business Resource Center, an incredible resource, and they have committed to working with us over the next 90 days on this retail recruitment and reviewing our marketing materials. So we're really going to have some expert assistance on that. Okay, next slide. Before I introduce the designs, I'd like to introduce the designer, Jackie Stewart, who is here. And she is a multifunction designer. Could you go back to, well, at any rate, Jackie is a multifunction designer and a fine artist. She's worked with multiple construction companies, creating artistic facade designs, architectural construction drawings, site maps, development rendering. She lives and practices in Colonial Beach in Washington, D.C. Are you seeing our presentation? Right now, I'm seeing a maxim that I should probably listen to. Okay, now we can go to the next slide.
Sorry about that.
All right, so now we're beginning on the designs. I would say our designs are about 2/3 completed. We have developed designs in conjunction with property owners for individual buildings and then replacing them onto streetscapes. The first one is North Irving. This is a historic renovation of Doc's Motor Court, which occupies much of the east side of North Irving Avenue. The new owners were interested in preserving the building's historic character, so it's very close to what it has looked like, and this is likely to qualify them for historic tax credits. There are a few flourishes. There's a mural that Jackie added in one of the buildings, and also on the left, there is a small building that they probably are going to convert into another retail store. All right, next slide. Okay, here is the office area again. Very much in alignment with its original appearance. Few flourishes. You'll note what looks like a photograph next to the office. That's a blown up picture of Doc and Ellie Carruthers that Jackie thought would be a nice feature. The Carruthers family were very dear to the people in this community, and we'd like to see them continue to be celebrated. Having this iconic building preserved is a tremendous gift to our community, so we greatly appreciate the owners. Okay, next one is a streetscape for Hawthorne Avenue. A home decor shop is on its way into Jenny Helm's old building. You can see that. And the Columbia Beach Performing Arts Association is going to have offices there. This street is not completed. When it is, you'll see the Dotson Property Management condos. You'll see one side of those. We went looking for designs that align with the historic character, but offer a rather classy, elegant look in the old downtown. And we feel that is the most appropriate style for that area and to help us attract visitors year-round. Landscaping with trees is unlikely due to limited space, but hanging planters could be hung from the light poles. And I know you're asking, what about watering, which is something that I thought, well, this is not possible because who's going to water them? Until my husband and I invented a very clever device, a coffee can screwed into a pole. And you just dip it in a bucket and you can pour it over the hanging planters. So we're hoping that we can get some hanging planters there and maybe the businesses will adopt the hanging planter. Not everything has to be high tech. Okay. Now, this is the beginning of the streetscape for Washington Avenue, starting at Hawthorne. Just the beginning. We have not completed yet the redesigns for Sukhothai and Little Miniature Golf Course. But the owners of the building have asked us to come up with some designs that might attract buyers or could help them fix up the property, so that's coming. But this depicts a retail rental development at the corner of Washington and Hawthorne. We've also been in touch with the owner of this property, who's quite interested in such a design, either to help him in negotiations with sellers or to intersellers, or possibly as a joint project with somebody else. Second story rental units over retail is a way of increasing income for shop owners and is one way of increasing rental space downtown. Renters tend to be year-round and full-time, generating patrons for downtown businesses. And you're going to see more of that type of thing later on in the slideshow. This is ideas for Central House renovation. The Central House is not going to be shown on the streetscapes because of the angle where it's located. It's reputed to be the oldest house in Colonial Beach. And after renovation, we understand the owners hope to make it a bed and breakfast. The one on the left shows a pretty basic restoration in accord with its historic appearance. They wanted to play around with some other designs and came up with those two-level porches. Don't know whether or not it would still qualify for historic tax credits under those circumstances, but sometimes people just want to do what they want to do, and it certainly is very attractive. Okay, the next one. Now, you've probably seen this. This was a design possibility for the old Texaco station. If you don't know where that is the old gray deteriorating building with broken windows on Washington Avenue. And Jackie came up with a conceptualization of a sort of historic replica. The owner is, as we understand, is interested in having a building that reflects the original look, have a historic design. However, I understand that he too wants to add some second story rental. It's not shown on this design. This design is for inspiration only, and that's the purpose of many of these designs. If Colonial Beach downtown doesn't look beautiful now, we want to show them how beautiful it could look with good design and historic restoration. All right, the next one. Now this is the corner of Washington and Colonial. Again, more rental over retail. Since Dotson Property Management is constructing and doing so many renovations and new construction downtown, we were able to move up our design work onto Colonial Avenue. Now, when we get the streetscapes finished, it's going to show Birdie's attractive property across the street, and there are negotiations, a lot of, I guess, a few people interested in the antique outdoor art building close to Birdie's. And so you'll have, if we put in something like this, we'd have a very nice, attractive corner adding to our downtown retail and development. And a reminder that the more interesting retail we have, the better chance we have of attracting visitors year-round, which is one of the main goals of this project, how to do that. Okay, the next one. Okay, this is at the west end of Colonial Avenue, and I say where revitalization meets community redevelopment. Our design work was also intended to propose ways of meeting community needs. Town government has been seeking to relocate. There's a need for recreational space for youth during the cooler months. The theater needs performance space. The rescue squad needs to move out of a flood zone. Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Commission must find new homes, since their current sites are being sold to the new developers. Buildings in this area, which is now blighted, severely blighted, could serve many of these purposes and greatly improve the appearance of our entry corridor. This rendering depicts the possible transformation of the empty auto impound lot into a civic center for town government and police, maybe with an auditorium for theater performances, and at the back, a centrally located recreational center for youth to use during the cooler months. It's a large building, so it could possibly accommodate office space for other organizations as well. A recreational facility there would be located near to where most of the children live on the north side of town. Such uses would bring a continuous stream of potential customers to Colonial Avenue businesses and help make the avenue a unifying line rather than the dividing line it has been viewed as to date. We feel an obligation to existing businesses in our commercial core and to the new retailers and investors we are recruiting for our downtown to do all that we can to increase year-round, full-week foot traffic for their businesses. Siting municipal facilities on Colonial Avenue would help with that, as would the large rental complex we've depicted in the background on the right. Yeah, next slide. This shows the transformation of the Beachgate Motel area into a much-needed rental development. Such a development would serve several community needs. The draft comprehensive plan points to the dire need for more rental units in Colonial Beach. Like much of America, we are beginning to experience a housing crisis with a very low inventory of single-family homes for sale and even fewer rental options. We'd like to see the town start meeting those needs by placing a new rental development on Colonial Avenue where residents, again, could support nearby businesses. And repeating myself, renters tend to be full-week, year-round inhabitants, which would help alleviate the seasonal nature of retail trade here. Another reason we need additional rental units is for our tourism employees and the service workers who helped us survive comfortably and safely during the pandemic. These essential workers deserve to live in the community they serve. Our tourism businesses cannot provide good customer service and expand if businesses can't find employees because the employees can't afford to live here. Our new retailers will also need employees as well as customers. Some of these new retail units could and should be set aside for employee housing. Next slide. This shows the east wing of the apartment complex. Jackie in the overall design made space or used the space available to also increase landscaping there. Oh, that's south. Okay, I'm sorry, that's the south. South side. All right, next slide. This is all pie in the sky without funding, right? Which leads to our conclusion. We need an economic development director now. A seasoned professional with extensive, successful grant development experience to set up the equivalent of a grants application factory that can generate multiple 6- and 7-figure grant applications. A half-time staff person, however capable, is not enough. In addition to being guided by the town manager and mayor and council, this economic development director could and should be supported and guided by an economic development commission or council or authority, whatever you would want to name it, that can provide initial input, mobilize other stakeholders, generate matching funds when needed, ensure accountability, and much, much more. We already have the making of such a commission in the Economic Development Initiative formed by the Chamber of Commerce and headed by Mike Fitzpatrick. His committee could form the initial core of such a commission with other stakeholders added for a fully representative body. The Economic Development Initiative group, committee, is supportive of an economic development director now and would be willing to serve as a start-up for an economic development commission. Okay, next slide. Why now? Well, to fund critically needed and expensive infrastructure and economic development needs. There's no question about that they are out there. We have miles of sidewalks to install or repair. We have serious drainage issues. We need to rebuild the pier, just to name a few things. I'm sure you're aware of a lot more. Now, whether you support the COVID relief bill already passed and the pending infrastructure bill, both involve a lot of money. And most of it is not going to be just handed over to communities. The funds will go to those ready to compete. And we are. Thanks to you. Our town has done its homework. You have worked hard. You've been doing the research necessary, excuse me, and collaborating with expert partners to generate the right solutions, not just Band-Aids, for the serious challenges we face. We may not be shovel ready right now, but we're probably close to application ready. For instance, the town government and citizens have been working with the RAFT project and its partners from the University of Virginia, Old Dominion University, and William and Mary School of Law to increase our resilience to flooding and weather emergencies, and specifically here on the pressing issue of stormwater waste management. We've been working with the Forestry Department and Green Infrastructure Class and Institute from the University of Virginia on developing park spaces, shade, and landscaping for our boardwalk and Colonial Avenue. We've partnered with the State Department of Historic Resources on historic district applications, likely to be designated in June. And there's additional historic surveying coming, laying the foundation for further preservation-based development. The recently established Alliance of Community Organizations can supply project partners and stakeholder input. I've already mentioned the Economic Development Initiative, and now we'll be working with the University of Mary Washington Economic Development Department and Small Business Development Center. Also, without grants, which we can get now, the financial burdens will fall on residents in the form of higher taxes and fees. Ultimately, somebody has to pay for these infrastructure improvements and needs. If the taxpayers are put in that position, that could result in resident displacement. Downtown Colonial Beach did not get into revitalization, only for the end result being displacement of the original inhabitants. We need ways to pay for improvements that secure resident housing, not jeopardizing it. Okay, next slide. Why our own economic development director? Why not just farm this out to somebody else, to contract it out? Well, our own economic development director will look out for Colonial Beach interests first and be more subject to local input. Our influence and ability to get our needs met through the county and Northern Neck as a whole has been limited and sometimes frustrating. Collaboration is fine, but our town needs to call the shots about our own future. We're more competitive if we're nimble. Layers of bureaucracy can impede our progress. One thing downtown Colonial Beach has learned is that sometimes it's necessary to pounce on an opportunity. There are many things that downtown Colonial Beach couldn't have accomplished if we hadn't done so, like this grant or the historic district. Also, grant applications involve far more than just writing the grant. Probably 95% of grant application work occurs before you sit down to write the grant. Opportunities have to be identified, vetted, recommendations solicited from stakeholders, and coordination arranged with partners, matching funds raised, budgets developed, and much more, even for small grants. Much more for the 6 and 7 figure grants that I think we can land. So I hope by now you've reached the same conclusion that we did. After hiring the town manager, hiring an economic development director is the single most important expenditure to put in the upcoming budget, because it will pay for a lot of what we need. There has never been a better time, a more important time to do this, and maybe also not a better council and mayor to do it. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to make this presentation, and if you have time, I would be glad to answer questions.
Thank you, Joy. Are there any questions from council? I want to thank the designer for coming today, all the way, and you live here in Columbia Beach and up north, and hopefully we can share some of those images. Will you share that with Maggie and Heather, some of the images that we can help promote some of that vision out there and advertise it as that? I appreciate that very much. And I feel like today's meeting has been a budget hearing for soliciting budget amendments. So it's a good timing though. This is an important and critical time to do that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, citizen input. Is there a sheet, Heather? Oh, okay. So this is just citizen input, not, all right. Walter? And I do keep you to 3 minutes, Walter. 3 minutes.
84.
3 minutes.
Okay. I want the council and the audience to know about the concessions building that I built many years ago. The floor in that building is 15 inches thick. Every hole in that building is rebar 1 inch thick. Every hole in that building has got concrete around every hole. And in that floor, every layer of that block, every layer of the block, it's got rebar, every layer. And that building is so strong. And the other thing, the rafters in that building are double thick, 10 inches apart instead of 16 inches. They are bolted to the cinder block. And I want the council and the audience to know that the building is not going anywhere. You know, the other thing, when that building, we had 4 Little League teams in Colonial Beach. I went to Lowe's. I had that ball field, water tower ball field. The whole thing was donated by Lowe's. You know, that was a tremendous undertaking.
Thank you very much, Walter. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams? Dave?
Good afternoon, David Williams, 1535 Irving Avenue. I just wanted to make a proposal tonight for the town council. Colonial Beach Resident Association would like to propose a ethics committee for the town of Colonial Beach. This would be an independent group that citizens could go to and maybe bring up any concerns they have for the town. Just an example, I was thinking of this whole thing going on right now with the easement grant for Eleanor Park. I know that it was written in that easement grant that you have unanimous support from the town council. I haven't heard anything. There's like 5 or 6 letters of endorsement from all these nonprofits in town. And to me, it's unethical for, at least as a citizen looking from the outside, looking in, thinking, well, why haven't I heard everybody discuss this? So that's just an example. I think that the town could, definitely use a committee that people could go and maybe restore confidence in the town and in its town's government. That's all I got. Thank you.
Ms. Montalvo? Doctor? Sorry.
Yes, we have been helping people. Every time that somebody comes to us, we give direct support to our residents. We don't go with big announcements telling anybody what we are doing. We are helping people. But every time that there is an issue and somebody comes to us, our bills are huge. From going to laboratories to get sample tested to actually every FOIA $250. So we are actually finding ways, creative ways to find the information. A lot of people, we are actually empowering people. So people know now what to do and they take ownership. But it's important that the citizens of Colonial Beach have the opportunity to go to a forum and ask the difficult questions and are not charged $250, whatever amount of money, for a FOIA because somebody told them something and they really need the documents to see something else. I do believe that the people should have transparency, bring the information to a neutral party, and the neutral party render a decision. Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Paige Williams, 1535 Irving Avenue. I first want to speak about Castlewood. I want to know when construction starts. I know we talked to Rob outside last time, and just kind of, it's spring, it's here. And the second thing I wasn't going to speak about, but I just was sitting there in my chair and I was thinking, well, Colonial Beach Residents Association is now officially and has been, I think, since February. Yes. We've been a nonprofit organization in the state of Virginia. So the people that keep trying to attack us and say we're not a nonprofit organization, they're wrong. I think, it made me think about it because when Joyce Reamer did her speech, although it was a beautiful presentation, it went on and on forever, and it wasn't 3 minutes. So in the future, I would really like our association to have more than 3 minutes since we are officially a nonprofit organization. Thank you.
Just for a clarification of bylaws, an association can request to get on the agenda as agenda item, which is how Ms. Patrick has,
Awesome.
been on the agenda, how downtown Columbia Beach has been on the agenda. But during public comment, if you read our bylaws, you can have a single representative for your association and it's 5 minutes. So instead of all three, you could have 5 minutes on one.
Awesome.
So just to clarify that in the bylaws.
Okay.
And we'll make sure to get back to you at the email address that was provided, because this is a different email address than before. This email address here,
Why did you?
I have a different email address on this than I've used before. Is this the right one? I don't want to say it out loud because it's, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to give out your email address.
Proton Mail?
At yahoo.com? Okay.
That's just my personal.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you want me to email you back at your personal email? Okay.
And we will be submitting the written request with everything, the proposal. So you will be receiving that right now.
All right. Unfinished business. Ordinance number 713, amends chapter 2, article 11, Parks and Rec Advisory. I don't have anybody signed up for public input. Is there public input here? Seeing none, okay. Do I have a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And it's open for discussion. Any discussion on this? Just to clarify for the audience, in case there's any confusion, this is amending their bylaws to have not 3 officers, but 2 officers and then a clerk. And the clerk is the Parks and Rec Department Director. And then it just amends secretary to the word clerk. I think that's it. Is there any other discussion?
Move the adoption.
All right, everybody in favor, say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. All right, resolution 15-21, authorization of jet truck USDA loan agreement. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. Is there any public comment on the jet truck? Okay. Yes.
Madam Mayor, just for format, if you could open the public hearing and then close the public hearing.
Oh, sorry, yes. Public hearing is open at 1:55 PM. Oh, I have this thing,
The recorder.
sorry, the recording is up there. 7:49, 1:51, yeah, I wish it was 1:51. And close to 7:50. Seeing no comment. Okay. All right, do I have a motion, a second, and then any discussion on this?
So moved.
Second. All right, any discussion? Mr. Martin? Oh, okay, you're seconding, you're good? Okay, I think we've discussed this topic at length, so I don't think there's any changes or surprises from that point. The motion is to proceed. Okay. Sounds good. Do I do a roll call vote or can I do it all in favor?
You can do it all in favor, and I would just clarify that it's my understanding the motion is to approve the funding. It's actually a bond issue is what technically under Virginia law. So to approve the bond issue and then to approve the execution of the appropriate documents by the town manager.
The motion is to approve resolution 16-21. Oh wait, is that the right one? Wrong one. I moved up one. 15-21. Authorization to enter into the USDA loan agreement for the jet truck. Do I need to read the entire? No?
No.
All right. All in favor then? Yes. Wait. I'm sorry.
Correction, I believe that ordinances and resolutions are the two things that require a recorded vote.
Okay. I was
Ordinances and
trying to
resolutions.
make it smoother for you now.
Well, it will be recorded in your minutes. You can still do it by, the eye or whatever, as long as it's recorded in your minutes, but if you want to do a roll call, but it does, that is correct. It must be recorded in your minutes, by person, by individual. It must be recorded that way. That's
we can do
exactly right.
We can do it by voice if it's recorded appropriately.
You can.
Okay.
But it's the safer thing. You're right about that as well. It's much safer to do the roll call.
All in favor say Colonial Beach is awesome.
Colonial Beach is
All
awesome.
right. There we go. All opposed, say nay. No nays. Okay, great. Excellent. You can write in the minutes as, yeah, thank you. Sometimes you just gotta relax a little bit. I don't know. Okay, new business, resolution 16-21, amendment to resolution 12-21, the budget timeline. This is pushing it back one meeting down that timeline. Part of it was because we were having the audit today, and so, now that that is past us, then we will begin with the remainder of the budget timeline as the sequence from before. We're still ahead of schedule as far as the, date, but just giving some background. And a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Mr. Moncur, would you like to make your point of personal privilege?
Yes, and this is a point of personal privilege, but I'll qualify it in that manner. Robin, in your letter of March 24th to the Virginia Land Conservation Foundation, which I just recently viewed online, you wrote that at our annual prioritization meeting of January 18th, we, quote, upheld unanimous support to prioritize the review of strategy for public lands and specifically to Eleanor Park, close quote. Permit me to suggest that this conclusion of a particular result, as it affects me, is a mischaracterization based on a misunderstanding. I found our January 18th prioritization meeting to be a useful exercise. And if it had been up to me, we'd have taken it top down rather than a bottom up approach. But understand clearly that I'm not inclined to tinker with established procedures and do and will act with deference to council traditions. I assumed the purpose of our prioritization meeting was to establish working guidelines and to serve as a template for further discussions. The meeting was concluded by informal consensus with, and again, I assume, the substance to follow in detail in adopting a budget. We did not vote on any of the particulars, nor do I view any of the particulars set in stone. So please accept my apology for any misunderstanding of the priorities. And please note my dissent to the extent that unanimity is represented in this matter. Thank
Thank you. I understand that. I do want to let you know that we are pursuing all of those priorities and that several grants, including the Green Street Grant, the Trees Grant, the Shoreline Erosion Grant through NIFWIF, the Historic Designation Grant through Natural Resources, and with the grant with the Department of Forestry, all require letters of support and all priorities and all have that. But I understand your misconception there. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. And next up is closed meeting. Is there any other, anybody want to read us in? I'll read us in. Pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8 for consultation with legal counsel employed regarding specific matters requiring legal advice from counsel for development and real estate agreement contract analysis, nothing in the subdivision shall be construed to permit a closure of meeting merely because an attorney is representing the public body is in attendance or consulted on matter. Is there a motion to go into closed meeting?
So moved. Second.
And I'm gonna do a roll call on this, I think, just to be formal. Okay. I don't know. Dr. Sullivan.
Aye.
Mr. Alice.
Aye.
Mr. Casey.
Aye.
Mr. Beckett.
Aye.
Mr. Monkey.
Aye.
Ms. Robertson.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. We won't be very long, and there will be, there's an action after the closed session, if you want to stick around. Thank you. I didn't want anybody to like leave and then think that
No, that's
there
not
wasn't gonna be. Yeah, if you want to stick around for after